i.E.A. 1394 is a computer interface standard for serial bus for high-speed communications, originally developed in the late 1980s and early 90s by Apple, which called it FireWire, and in cooperation with a number of other companies, primarily Sony and Panasonic. Sony used their own name, i.Link, and Texas Instruments used the name Lynx. Power can be carried over the cables, allowing devices with moderate power requirements to operate without a separate power supply. The first Apple machines to include FireWire on the motherboard was the blue and white Power Mac G3, which was released in January of 1999, although it had been a build-to-order option on some models as early as 1997. Apple intended FireWire to be a serial replacement for the parallel SCSI bus, while providing connectivity for digital audio and video equipment. It was commonly used to connect external data storage devices such as hard drives or optical drives, as well as being used for digital video cameras. Many users preferred it over the more common USB 2 for its greater effective speed and power distribution capabilities. Apple released their last computer with FireWire in 2012. By 2014, Thunderbolt had become the standard feature across Apple's entire line of computers, effectively becoming the spiritual successor to FireWire in the Apple ecosystem. My original iMac DV had 2 FireWire ports on, but at the time external drives were too expensive, and I didn't edit video or even have a digital camcorder, so I had little need for it. Likewise with the iBook G3. However, when I bought my original Mac Mini, the price of drives had dropped, so I bought an external 120GB drive to store my ever-growing library of digital media. Here we have a Lacy external DVD writer. The stock optical drive in the Mac Mini is a DVD reader CD burner, or also known as the combo drive, and I don't think any aftermarket DVD burners were released as a replacement. The drives show up like you would expect in Disk Utility. An opening System Profiler, which is now called System Information, shows what's connected to the FireWire bus. Most external drives had additional FireWire ports on the back, meaning that you could easily daisy-chain devices together. The benefit of this is although there is only one port on the back of the Mac Mini, you can still connect a number of other devices and use them at the same time. The maximum number of devices that can be connected to any one port is 62. The 20-inch cinema display includes a FireWire hub. The attached cable includes a FireWire connector, which connects to the back of the Mac Mini and increases the number of the ports to 2. You could add DVD playback or burning capabilities to a device that didn't already have it. Here, for example, we're playing back a video using Apple DVD Player. I guess no one had ever done this before because we have to choose a region. Anyone remember region-locked DVDs? Playback works as expected. You can choose a chapter and watch it without issue. This even works on the iBook G3 in macOS 10.4, but sadly not in macOS 9.2.2. It wasn't just external devices that can be connected via FireWire. Any number of devices on the bus could be a computer. You can enable TCP over FireWire and create a network, similar to how a token ring network used to be connected, if you were to use computers that had 2 FireWire ports. The network, however, would be broken in the middle if a machine was turned off. The speed of the network would be up to 400 megabits per second, and transferring files would be much faster on machines that had USB 1.1. Another unique feature to Apple machines is the ability to use the Mac as a FireWire hard drive. Here, for example, we have an iBook G3 connected in target disk mode, and I'm doing an install of macOS 10.4 onto the iBook's hard drive from the Tiger Install DVD inside the Power Mac G4. I had to do it this way because the iBook only has a CD reader, and at the time I didn't have the external DVD burner. So let's see multiple drives connected in real life. Here I have a FireWire hard drive that I'm going to daisy chain off the back of the DVD burner, so I don't have to go hunting around the back of the cinema display for a connector. Both of these drives sadly are not bus powered and require separate power bricks. If I were going to be doing this with anything more than 2 devices, I'd need to make sure I had a power strip handy. The hard disk is super useful for transferring files to and from my MacBook Pro over to my old Macs, as it not only has FireWire but USB 2 as well. If you've ever copied anything over USB 1.1, you'll know what an exercise in patience it is. I'm going to create a new folder on the external drive and copy over a movie trailer and a movie and see what kind of write speeds can be achieved. A fun fact is macOS 10 assigns device icons based on their connection method. A USB drive shows up with a USB icon and a FireWire drive shows up with a FireWire icon. It's a nice visual representation, so hopefully you know with which device you're doing what with. Now the transfer speeds aren't anything to write home about. By today's standards, they're slow, but this is due to the physical limitations of mechanical storage media. It takes approximately 5 seconds per 100 megabytes written, which is ridiculously fast compared to the USB 1.1 speeds. Whilst doing some testing previously, I was only able to get about half a megabyte per second, and copying 850 megabytes of data took almost a full 18 minutes. So back before USB 2 was released, this was the way to go, and you can see why Apple and other companies adopted it. That, and it was an incredibly lucrative market for Apple, as they charged a license fee if you wanted to use FireWire in your devices. Other benefits were devices were hot swappable provided they were ejected correctly, no chunky SCSI cables, no more terminators.
I'll be back.
No you won't, and no fiddling with SCSI ID numbers. So opening up the video which we've now copied to the external drive, let's see what kind of performance we're getting. Skipping backwards and forwards in the video is as if I were doing this from the Mac Mini's internal disk. It's identical, if not better, due to the 7200 RPM drive speed. What's also really handy is there is no requirement for device drivers to be installed, it's just plug and play, something which we take for granted today. All in all, I have to say I prefer FireWire over USB 2. It saw widespread adoption in all different kinds of industries, as well as having more capabilities than USB. But according to Ars Technica, despite rising Mac sales, Apple's financial situation remained dire. The company needed more income. After being informed of IBM's hundreds of millions in yearly patent revenues, CEO Steve Jobs authorized the change in FireWire's licensing policy. Apple would now charge a fee of $1 per port. So if a device had 2 ports, that's $2 per unit. The consumer electronics industry was outraged. They saw it as untenable and unjustified. Intel sent its CTO to talk to Jobs about the change, but the meeting went badly. Intel decided to withdraw its support for FireWire, to pull the plug on any efforts to build FireWire into its chipset, and instead throw its weight behind USB 2. This was the death blow for FireWire in most of the PC market. In the next video, we'll take a look at Apple's smallest iPod, the original iPod Shuffle. Thank you ever so much for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.